is Sharon Stitler. Before we actually start, can we just quickly do some housekeeping? Make sure, please, that your mics are off, and I can see that most people's are, which is great. And also, if you can, if you want to ask a question, if you're looking at your screen and you're not familiar with Zoom, then you can look along the bottom and it should say reactions with a little smile and plus sign on there. And you can actually click that and put your hand up, and hopefully I'll see that you're waving and we can ask a question. So that's the housekeeping. I'm actually recording this, so I hope you don't mind. If you do, turn your camera off, that'd be cool. And feel free to ask questions whenever you want. So Sharon, it's a beautiful day where you are, which I believe is Falcon Heights in Minneapolis. Well, near Minneapolis, is that right?
Technically Falcon Heights, Minnesota. I'm right in between Minneapolis and St. Paul.
It doesn't make any, I don't have a clue because my geography when it comes to America is very, very poor, actually.
My favorite thing is when Europeans find out that I'm from the United States is that they ask me, how close is it to New York?
And how close is it to New York?
Not very close at all. So I'm right in the middle of the United States, and I'm just underneath Canada. So Canada is our northern border in the state I live in.
Well, there's your geography lesson for you. Sharon is a national park ranger. She's an author, a TV and radio personality, and she's pretty knowledgeable about birds. Have I missed anything at all?
I've written a few books.
Yeah, an author. And you're
sorry. It's been a long day of Zoom meetings.
And also you are quite funny. I've known Sharon for about 8 years. We met at the Texas, the Rio Grande Valley Festival, which is a bird festival in Texas. And that was about 8 years ago. And we hit it off immediately. We were having a great laugh then. And we also saw each other a few years later, I think in 2014 or something, in the British Bird Watching Fair. That was the year I was doing doing the Vote for Britain's National Bird.
Yes, yeah. And Texas, you will find me in, well, not right now, but you can find me in the Rio Grande Valley quite a bit. As a matter of fact, right before we had lockdown here in Minnesota, I took a trip down to the Rio Grande Valley in February for a little vacation.
Was it good?
Oh, it's always great in the valley. The people are wonderful. The birds are outstanding. The day I get tired of seeing a green jay is the day I need to hang up my binoculars.
And let me ask you a quick question, actually. One question that's always been on my mind. I mean, you're called Bird Chick. That's your kind of, your AKA, as I am known as the urban birder. Where did that come from, Bird Chick?
So years ago, like in the late 90s, I started doing a lot of TV segments in the Twin Cities metro area for the wild bird store I work for. And anytime you're on TV talking about birds, they automatically call you the bird lady. I mean, it's any topic. At the same time, there was a woman that did a lot of dog stuff and they always called her the dog lady. And I was like, well, I'm glad I don't have that name. But there are many bird ladies. And in Minnesota, we have Laura Erickson, and she's further north than I am, but she's an established bird lady. So I was trying to find a way to differentiate myself from the other bird ladies. And I was getting a tattoo one day, and the guy was like, oh, you're that chick on TV that tells me to feed safflower to get rid of grackles and shit. And so that's where Bird Chick was born.
So did you change your tattoo then? Were you having something else done and suddenly thought, you know what, stop, let's have Bird Chick instead?
No, I wouldn't put my own name on my body. That's weird. No, actually, I'm pretty proud of this tattoo. It's a sandhill crane, and it was designed by Paul Johnsgaard, who's a North American authority on sandhill crane. So I love that I got a 73-year-old ornithologist to design my tramp stamp.
Where is your tattoo, may I ask?
I can show you. It's on my lower back. Let's see.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's original artwork, and so I absolutely love it.
Is that the only one you have?
We have to know each other very well before I show you the endangered species.
You know, you said you wouldn't have your name on your body. If I was 17 now, and if I was cut like I was when I was 17, maybe it might have worked out a bit more, I would have had the urban birder written on my chest.
You know, I work for the National Park Service, and I love the National Park Service arrowhead logo. I think it's a cool logo. And I've seen people who've had it tattooed on their body, and it's just like, I don't know if I want a logo on me, even if it's my own logo, even if it's a logo I like. What if I don't think this would ever happen, but what if I had a traumatic experience with birds and I decided like I had to break up with birds? I'd have to do a Johnny Depp and get like the tattoo redone.
Exactly, you get someone to sort of reinvent it. Stitler, what does that mean?
I don't know. I know what my first name means, but actually, it's German. I know that. It's not my name originally. I married into it and then married out of it.
Okay.
But my first name, Sharon, means a great and fertile plain.
Okay, so listen, in your life, I mean, we're going to go back to when you first got interested in birds, but one thing that always struck me when I looked up about you was the fact that you said to yourself that your ambition was to be paid to go birding, and that ambition has been realized since 1997. Now, what was, I mean, obviously that was the ambition, but what was the actual end game ambition?
You know, it's really interesting because I've always loved birds. I kind of got away from them when I was a teenager because it wasn't cool. I still paid attention to them, but I distinctly remember a point in my 20s walking across the college campus with this really, really cute guy I wanted to date, and a bird flew in front of us, and I said, "Oh, it's a rufous-sided towhee," because that's what they were called at the time. And he said, "What did you say?" And I said, "Oh, don't worry about it, don't worry about it." And he's like, "No, seriously, what was that word that came out of your mouth?" And I said, "Well, a bird flew in front of us, and I haven't seen it for a long time, and it's called a rufous-sided towhee. I know what some birds are." And he's like, "Oh, that's really cool." And I was like, well, I know a lot more birds than that. But it was also that spring that I saw a lot of migrating birds over campus. I saw a kestrel kill a starling. And I was just like, wow, I really love birds and I need to get back to birds. And I worked as an actor for a little while, and then I just realized I didn't enjoy acting, but I really enjoyed birding. And I just like, fine, I want to find a way to get paid to go birding. I don't want to get paid to do acting anymore.
Let's go back even further in your history. When did you discover your interest in natural history and birds?
I was about 6 or 7, and my oldest sister had just moved out of the house, and someone gave her a Peterson field guide as a housewarming gift. And so my family was over there visiting, and she handed it to me to look through, and I'm kind of looking through, and then I got to the woodpecker section, and they said there was a crow-sized woodpecker called a pileated woodpecker. And I was like, I want to see a giant woodpecker. And I just snapped, and I really got interested in birds.
Is it pileated or pileated?
That's a good question. A lot of people say pileated, but depending on certain parts of the United States, they'll say pileated, and even parts of Minnesota, they'll say pileated. Either is correct.
Oh, just because there's some people, whoops, just dropped my pen. There's some people here that may not know what a pileated woodpecker looks like. So whilst we're talking, I was quickly going to...
normally I put it on my phone, but I have my phone set up for digiscoping.
I could be your assistant today. So basically you got the Peterson guide. So what, I mean, was the pileated woodpecker your kind of, you guys say spark bird, don't you? Was that your spark bird, or was that the bird that triggered you off to find the spark bird?
I call that my spark bird because my mom knew cardinals, she knew crows, and she would point those out, but I became obsessed with trying to see a crow-sized woodpecker, and it would be another 2 years before I saw one. But in the meantime, my family, I think, thought, oh, educational gift. So I got all kinds of bird books when I was a kid. I got a bird feeder. I even got a parakeet at one point as a gift, which I don't recommend. Yep, that's it. That's the bird that got me interested. And
I saw the first one, Sharon, the first proper view of a pileated woodpecker last year in Ohio. And I heard one 3 years previously in Ithaca, New York State, when I went to the Cornell laboratory. But I didn't see it. I saw a dark shaped fly off. It could have been an ivory-billed woodpecker for all I knew.
Not quite the same call. But yeah, they have this really crazy, it's almost kind of a menacing call when you hear it echoing in the woods. kind of a whoop, 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 whoop.
Well, as it happens, I'm a very good assistant of yours, actually, because I do happen to have the Sibley bird guide on my phone. And for those who are maybe not familiar with the Pileated Woodpecker's call, allow me to illustrate. Can you hear that?
A little. It started strong and then it goes away, but it's not quite the same as hearing it echoing in the woods. And you're like, what is that?
Not at all. There's a question I was going to ask you, actually, which is, you now currently work for National Park Service. What do you do in that job?
Right now, I stay at home and I do a lot of online programming. But no, I design a lot of bird programs for our park. I do a lot of kayak and canoe programs. I'll take people out to heron rookeries and try to not get them vomited on. I take them on kayaks to see prothonotary warblers. I do some citizen science events where like big sits and big watches. And I also do some arts programming. Like I do a murder mystery show on a riverboat called Murder on the Mississippi. And the show is all based on historical facts about our park.
So basically you're there to encourage and get people involved in nature.
Yes, yes, yes. I run some visitor centers too, but it's all a ploy. I'm really out there pushing birds on everybody.
How long have you been doing that job?
I started accidentally part-time in 2008, and yeah, I've been there ever since. And now I'm full-time, and I actually have like some status. And in case we get bored, I did bring some of my Park Service props with me, but I think we're doing pretty good. I've got a cardinal singing right overhead, so if anybody who's not from the United States hears a bird, it's a northern cardinal. He comes down to the pier. I'll try and digiscope him.
Okay, cool. And that's the other thing I want to talk to you about, because you are a total expert digiscoper, but you've written a few books, one of which is this one.
Hey!
And I basically, if you ever go to Sharon's YouTube page, she's got a really great like commercial she's put together for the book, which is really fun. You should check it out. But
I got in a lot of favors for that commercial.
you also wrote something in my book. I should read it out for all the lovely people here. It says, "David, lovely to meet you. Thank you for smelling so great."
I do appreciate a man who smells very nice.
So that's taken pride of place in my bookshelf, by the way. So
Awesome.
What other books have you written?
I had a book called City Bird, Country Birds. It was about attracting birds no matter where you live, whether it's in a city or a rural area. I have an essay in Good Birders Still Don't Wear White. And then, my first book, which is actually my best moneymaker, is not about birds. It's called Disapproving Rabbits, and it's a book of terrible rabbit photos and all the reasons why rabbits don't like you.
And why don't rabbits like people?
Rabbits just disapprove of everything. They're highly judgmental. I've lived with several rabbits over the years. They're cute, but judgmental. Disapproving Rabbits started off as a joke. It was kind of a running joke to my husband and I at the time. And when we created the Bird Chick page, I was like, why don't we just create a Disapproving Rabbits page? There goes a downy woodpecker. And he said, he's like, no one's going to get that joke. And I said, you know what? If someone finds this page and they get a laugh out of it, that's fine. So we created it, and then people demanded more. So we created a few more pages, and then people started sending us pictures of their rabbits. So we just started posting pictures of people's rabbits and about how much the rabbits didn't like them. And then one day I got an email from someone claiming to be from HarperCollins. And it's like, this is hilarious. Do you want to turn this into a book? Let's talk money. And I was like, this is a joke. And then I Googled the guy, and he was legit. And yeah, that year my rabbits made more money than I did.
Going back to this book, I noticed that it's actually, the foreword's written by Bill Oddie. And to those people in the UK, obviously Bill Oddie's he's like a national treasure. How did you get to know Bill Oddie?
Well, I had heard about Bill Oddie for a long time. So I'm good friends with a writer named Neil Gaiman. He and I have kept bees together and hang out, and he loaned me his agent when I got my first book. And so he was like, I know this really funny British guy named Bill Oddie. And he started giving me Bill Oddie books. And I was like, oh, these are great. And then Bill and I ended up on a familiarization trip to Israel together. And I was super excited to meet him. And we became fast friends. I think it was mostly because he and I are the same height. And I don't know if you know Tim Appleton, one of the guys who founded Bird Fair, who's super tall and can walk really fast. He was just always like a mile and a half ahead of the rest of us. And Bill Oddie and I were just always kind of trundling in the back and just got to be great friends. And so when I wrote that book, they said, you know, we really kind of need a celebrity for you to get in the forward if you happen to know anyone. And they gave me a list of celebrities, including Sir Paul McCartney. And they said, do you know him? Could you get him to write the forward? And of the list of celebrities, the only one I actually had any connection with was Bill Oddie. And I was like, Bill, could you write me a forward for my book? And if I'm ever in the UK, I'll buy you dinner. And he did. And I did make it to the UK and I bought him dinner and it was a great time.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Bill Oddie actually helped me massively in my career when I first started. Because for me, he cut the path for me personally, because he's basically awesome. The first real kind of birding sort of personality in the UK. And when I first became the urban birder, I remember being invited onto the Spring Watch set, which is a big program in Britain.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Natural history program. And he took me into his weenie bago, sat me down, and he started giving me advice and said to me, you know, you need to do this, you need to do that. And then he introduced me to a couple of people on set, like there's another woman called Kate Humble, who's one of the co-presenters.
Oh, yeah.
And he was lovely. And ever since then, every time I meet him, every now and again, he'd come up to me and say to me, you know, David, I'm very proud of you. I'm like,
yeah, he's been incredibly supportive to me. He's always been really nice, never dismissive. And did you ever watch any of the Goodies?
You cannot call yourself English and not watch the Goodies.
I love Kitten Kong, and I love the episode that they did about the movies where they each have a share in a movie studio. The comedy bit at the end of that is fantastic.
You know that one of them died the other day. Tim Brooke Taylor died, unfortunately.
I did. I was very sad. Neil told me about that. And I was like, is everybody keeping an eye on Bill? Is Bill okay? Let's keep Bill safe from the corona too.
Yeah. Bill's not well anyway, because he's bipolar.
Yes.
So he's had a few issues, unfortunately, over the years.
Yes.
Anyway, you like beekeeping as well. Now, break that down. How does that fit into what you do? The beekeeping
bit. Know, the birds and the bees.
True.
No, I've always been fascinated by bees, and I was at Neil's house one day, and he said he was looking at a website, and this was years ago, and he's like, "Oh, I've always wanted to keep bees, but my personal assistant won't help me, and I travel too much." And at the time, I didn't travel as much. And I said, "You know, I've always wanted to keep bees, but in the neighborhood I live in, it's illegal." And so Neil turned around and he said, "I'll buy all the equipment."
Illegal to keep bees?
In some urban areas it is.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because people are afraid that bees are going to sting you.
Oh, they're afraid of swarms. Yeah.
And that's when bees are least likely to sting you. But no, they're afraid of being stung. Bees are just really misunderstood.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I wonder if that's the case in the UK. If anyone in the I've got Claire here. Can you?
Yeah, it's similar in the UK. In certain areas, you wouldn't be allowed to keep bees, especially built up housing estates, etc. I wouldn't mind having a beehive in the garden, but yeah, wouldn't be able to keep bees here.
Well, that is news. I didn't realise that at all. Thank you, Claire. Sorry, Bird Chick, you were saying.
Okay, so anyway, so that's how it happened. It was that Neil and I were just talking, and so he bought all the equipment, and I ran the hives, and eventually I started traveling too much, so we taught his housekeeper how to do it, and yeah, Game and Stitler honey is a thing.
So, I mean, I know very little, if anything, about beekeeping. So, how do you start a bee colony? Do you buy a bunch of bees, or do you wait for them to come to you? How does it work? You buy them from the pet shop?
No, you buy them from a bee source, and it's really funny. You order them in 3-pound packages, and I remember the first time we ordered them, the post office called and they said we have 3 boxes of bees here. We are not delivering them to your home. Can you please come pick them up? And they come in this box with wire on, or kind of like screen on the outside, and then on the inside is a feeder can, and next to that feeder can is a little cage that the queen is in. Because when they put the queen in with all the workers, she's not that queen, she's a new queen. So they have to kind of work out their differences for a few days. And then installing them it looked super easy from all the videos that I watched, but it was horrifying. So they told me, they said, you know, you can don't wear gloves, you might crush some bees, they're not going to sting you, they're super chill. So I went out with my friend Lorraine to install the bees for the first time, and you're supposed to spray them with sugar water. Then you bonk the box and all the bees are supposed to fall to the bottom, and then you carefully take the feeder can out, and then you take the queen cage out and you put that in a pocket, and then you take the 3 pounds of bees and you carefully pour them into the new hive like they're pizza sauce, and everything's supposed to be chill. What they don't tell you in the videos is that when you take the feeder can off, about 500 bees explode out of there. And so my friend Lorraine and I were completely panicking, and I'm like trying to stay calm, and I was like, Lorraine, you stay calm, just keep reading the instructions over and over, and don't think about how either of us are covered in about 500 bees, and whatever you do, don't flail. Flailing makes them sting. But eventually we got them all installed, and we've won several blue ribbons at the county fair, and it's all good.
So when you put them in the hive, they actually stay put?
You have to kind of close the door, block the door. You use something called an entrance reducer, which sounds a lot dirtier than it is. And you keep that on for about 24 to 48 hours to keep them from leaving.
And then after that,
okay, no birds.
After that, they become totally, you know, this is our home, we're gonna hang out here now.
Yeah, it's like, well, we can't leave, so we might as well start drying out comb. And it's really fun to kind of watch them dry out comb. And every hive has its own personality. Some are really chill. Like I used to have this hive I called the Lebowski hive because they didn't produce really well, but they were always super friendly. So if ever someone wanted to see bees and they were scared, I'd be like, look, you can take off your gloves, you dip your finger in some sugar water, you can hand feed them, and you have bees licking your finger. But then one day I came to visit them, and they seemed kind of drunk. And then I looked at them and I was like, well, you're not a worker, you're a drone. And then I realized, I was like, oh no. And I started looking through, the queen had been killed and all the female workers had started laying eggs. And when they do that, they can only lay drones, and they're all deformed. And yeah, and they also got robbed by one of the hives. It was sad. They were super friendly, but not good at defending their hive from intruders.
And how long does the queen normally last for?
She can last for about 2.5 years.
And how do you know when she's died? I mean, does one of them become the queen again?
Oh, now this is the dark side of bees. You have to make some tough decisions when your queen gets old and stops laying eggs. The queen must die. And you have to go in and find her, take her out, and then install a new queen. And that's a whole process to get the girls to accept her.
So you have to buy a new queen?
Yeah, I've ordered queens in the mail.
So what, the queen comes in an envelope?
She comes in a little box. Yeah, and there's some candy in there so she can eat. And so what you do is, she's already impregnated at that point too. So you put her cage in the hive, and then all the workers come up because they want to kill her. And then as soon as they're up to her, her pheromones come out, and all of a sudden they're just like, I don't want to kill you, I love you. And then they start spreading that pheromone through the rest of the hive. And then hopefully in 24 hours, everybody doesn't want to kill her. You might have 1 or 2 assassins left, but usually like after 24 hours, you can release her.
Okay, there's another question here from Claire.
I was just going to ask, does the queen not start to lay queen eggs, and they start rearing queens within the hive? Because isn't that when they normally go off and swarm? We're getting off the bird questions and onto bees now.
No. I'm happy to talk bees. I talk birds all the time, so this is fun. So it's really fascinating because you hear queen and you think that's the one who runs the hive. It's the workers who decide what's going on. Like the workers can decide, oh, this queen is no good. She's laying faulty eggs. We need to take some of these and we need to make some new queens because she's going to die.
You've got a bird.
Oh, birds. Oh, I have a chickadee close by. Oh. Gosh, I can't see on my scope.
Yeah, in the middle now. I can't see what it is.
Oh, I think that's a white-throated sparrow. My problem is that I I can't see in my scope. I can only see on the little postage stamp.
Can you not make your picture bigger?
Let's see.
You can.
I mean, for yourself.
You can. Yeah, you can pin it to make it full screen.
Oh, it's gone now.
Oh,
It's gone.
okay. You know, with the tail, I think that was actually a song sparrow. So if you needed an American species, there you go. It'll be back.
Okay, did we finish off on a bee?
So I answered one queen question, and that is the workers decide. The workers also can tell when the hive is getting too full, and so that's when they'll make a new queen. And they'll also, the pheromones kind of communicate. The queen will also feel cramped, and so her abdomen will reduce in swelling, so it's possible for her to fly. And the other crazy thing that happens is that all the workers that are going to leave load up on honey. They load up on so much honey because they don't know when they're going to be able to eat again, that it is physically impossible for them to bend their abdomen enough to sting you. So when you see a swarm of bees, that's when you're least likely to be stung.
Really?
Yeah.
That
was the thing that I read that made me want to keep bees.
Because that's the time when I'm most scared of bees.
Well, if you see a swarm, don't be scared. And the only time you're going to get stung is when you violate bee etiquette. So don't wear black. Don't wear all black because you look like a black bear. Don't flail. Flailing is a big no-no. That makes them want to sting. Don't stand in the bee highway. And don't bonk.
What's bunk?
Like make loud pounding noises on their hive.
Okay.
But if you move very fluidly like a dancer and you don't wear all black and you don't stand in the bee highway and you don't flail, you're not going to get stung.
So why is it that the media, and when you see movies and even cartoons, it's always a swarm of bees that's the one that's really the dangerous thing?
How often is the media accurate about birds? What makes you trust them about bees?
Now, speaking of birds, you're obviously a very avid birder, very knowledgeable one as well. Do you travel around the States? Are you a lister? What kind of birder are you? Are you a lister or are you a sort of a sedentary birder?
I'm a terrible lister. I couldn't tell you how many species I've seen. I have a general idea, but I don't know. I definitely love patch birding. That's one of my all-time favorite things, is when you have a spot. But I love traveling to see new birds. I'm not going to be gutted if like I've dipped on resplendent quetzal about 4 times now.
In Texas?
But I don't. No, quetzal you would get in Honduras or Guatemala.
Oh, I see. I thought you were talking about America. Sorry, go.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. But no, I love taking people to see birds. You know, I love going to the Rio Grande Valley with new people and showing them a green jay for the first time.
Is there any species out there in the United States of America that you are yet to see and you really fancy seeing? I mean, for me, even though I'm not in America and I'm not American, there's 2 or 3 species I really crave after. One's Smith's longspur, and the other is mountain plover, and Eskimo.
I have mountain plover. I got it accidentally when I used to do bird surveys for a living. But no, I have a nemesis bird right here in Minnesota where I live, spruce grouse. No matter how many times I chase it, no matter how much of a guarantee bird it is, if I show up, that bird won't be there. A northern goshawk might be there eating it, but I won't be there.
I've not seen any of the grouse in the States. This is that spruce grouse?
Yeah. Spruce grouse is mine, and everybody in Minnesota. It's a running joke. So every time someone sees one, they are happy to share their pictures with me.
So that's what we term as a bogey bird.
Okay.
Bogey, yeah. Do you travel internationally? I mean, obviously you do, but whereabouts do you go when you do travel?
I go to Europe quite often, especially Austria. But I've been to Portugal, Spain, France, Amsterdam, or the Netherlands, the UK. I've been to Israel. I've been to Uganda. That was an amazing trip. And Cuba was fantastic. I'm really missing Cuba right now. But yeah, I've been everywhere, but I think South America.
Oh, but South America. I haven't been to South America yet.
No, the furthest south I've gone is Panama.
Fair enough. I've not been there at all. At this point, anyone for any questions? Anyone got any questions for Bird Chick so far?
Seriously, you can ask anything. Yeah.
Hi. Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
My name is Renique. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm very well, Renique. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. It's nice to meet you,
See
Sharon.
you every night.
I know. Sharon, I'm the one who sent you the email about creating the global female bird guide list that I'm trying to put together.
I've followed you on Instagram for a long time as She-Birds.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I had a question kind of regarding female bird guides. I know you've been working for quite a while. It was kind of accidental, you said, but do you feel like you have any challenges being a female guide there at all, or is it just kind of like normal type guide situation? And are you the only female guide at that park that you work at?
That is a really good question. If you're talking about bird specific, I would be the only female guide, but there are a lot of guides who do different sorts of things. And I'm friends with a lot of female guides. And last year it was really interesting. I went to Uganda and I did a conference with the women birders of Uganda. And there were other bird guides there too. There was Tanya from Nala Tours in Australia. There was Megan Crew, who's with Field Guides. And we had this really great conversation about our challenges. And I think the thing that I've learned over the years is that all of us respond to these challenges differently. I have pretty much an attitude like, well, if you're going to be that way, fuck off, I'll go elsewhere. But not everyone has that choice or has that personality type. And it was fascinating because the women the young women were like, well, how do you find a guy that's willing to put up with you to go traveling all the time? And I was like, if they're not willing to do it, you just find someone else. It may not necessarily be a guy. Or they had challenges too of like, they show up and they're going to be the driver and the participant says, oh wait, you're going to drive? We don't have a male driver? And when I've encountered that, I've always countered it either with a dick joke, but that's not everybody's personality, but it's definitely something that's out there and all of us handle it in a different way. I mean, David and I have kind of referenced familiarization tours, and these are tours where industry leaders are invited to explore an area and hopefully we'll write about it or bring a tour there. And I distinctly remember, I won't name which one, showing up to one and I was the only female. And it was very clear that these men all knew each other, had traveled together, and they were like, oh no, there's a girl, we're gonna have to behave. And I told a couple of dirty jokes, but just because that's my style, that shouldn't be the style for everybody. It shouldn't be that uncomfortable feeling. So I think there are definite challenges out there and all of us handle it in a very different way. I hopefully, with my intolerance of it, am helping pave the way for other women, but I just understand that my very aggressive way of dealing with things is not everybody's style.
Great. Thank you so much, Sharon. It's really great to see you on here.
Yeah, it's great to see you in person. And yeah, that was a really good question.
I mean, it's an interesting question because that's one sort of question I was going to ask you, not so much in terms of your tour leading, but just birding in general. Do you get, because in the UK, for example, certain people are online talking about the sexual discrimination in the birding world in the UK and how men basically, don't respect women. But then when you look at the whole general picture, there seems to be even more female birders than ever before. And then when I go to America, there's a whole load of female birders, often more than men. So do you get any kind of grief like that when you're just out generally birding?
Oh, I have. And my instance has been like, I don't need your approval for the sighting I just had, bite me. But I remember like a big difference I noticed when I went to Bird Fair for the first time in the UK and I was going around to the booths. The number of times that I was completely ignored when I was actually interested in a product. I remember I was at specifically, one was really egregious. It was the sound approach booth. And I was really kind of interested in this whole system. And I was like, oh wait, and they were talking to some people. And then they kept talking to everyone else, even people that arrived after me. And so I just got very aggressive and started staring at one of the salespeople, and he was like, "You're okay, right?" And then he went to another man. And I was like, "You think I'm a girlfriend here? I'm actually interested in your I might actually write about your product in the United States." And then I just kind of ignored it at that point. But that was not the only booth, but that was the one where it was the most blatant. That I was like, I don't understand.
It's pretty sad, that really. I mean, I don't think that's a thing that happens all the time in UK. I don't know if there's any other, apart from Claire, any other female UK birders here, but I'm hoping that's not the case all the time. I mean,
they're out there because they'll text me, they'll email me, or they'll contact me through social media. I think the thing that happens is, you know, there can be cliques that are formed, whether it's all one particular gender or whether it's all one particular age group. This is the thing that people don't understand with social media. That's what's happening when people say things like, "Where are the young birders?" or "Why don't we have more women?" People are finding their own way to do it. They're finding a way to do it without the established status quo. And the young birders are out there. They talk about us. They're just not talking in the traditional platforms that we would look at. And it's also one of the challenges for people that want to try and advertise to other birders, because you can't just go onto Facebook and do something. You can't just go onto Twitter. You know, it's a lot more of individual chat groups that are forming. And on the one hand, I think this is kind of cool. You know, people are still finding their way, even if they're getting kind of an off-putting vibe from someone. But at the same time, it's like, oh, no, let's also kind of get you into the realm so we can also make sure everybody's ethically doing the right thing as well.
So you're sitting there in your yard. What sort of birds have been passing through? I trust it's migration time. You must be getting quite a lot of warblers coming through and stuff.
It's early for my part of the United States to have warblers. Right now we only have the butterbutts, the yellow-rumped warblers, and last night we just had a big migratory push, because normally this log that I'm aimed at usually has fox sparrows and white-throated sparrows and juncos, and none of them have shown up because they flew off last night. But we're right on the big cusp here in Minnesota. We're starting to get our thrushes, our really beautiful singers, and our catbirds. But this time next week in Minnesota, we'll have hummingbirds, we'll have orioles, and that's when we'll start to get the black-throated green warblers and the magnolia warblers and all the fun stuff. That's when I plan on calling in sick at the Park Service.
And how long does the migration period in spring last for?
Well, migration for us starts at the end of February and it ends at the beginning of March, but the real heavy hitting time is probably April 20th through about May 20th.
What's the state bird?
The loon, or the great northern diver, as you'd call it.
Yeah, you know, I've got a problem with that name, loon, because I know they're called loons because they make that sort of maniacal call, and it's almost like they're screaming at the moon, so they're loonies and what have you. But for me, I'm sorry, but, you know, I've got a problem with a lot of American names for birds, actually. I mean, loon...
Oh, I've got a problem with a lot of them, too.
Sorry?
I've got a problem with a lot of the American bird names, too.
I mean, loon for me is a diver, and your hawks, a lot of them are buzzards, and your buzzards are turkey vultures. You know, it's just quite interesting.
Don't even get me started on blackbirds versus robins versus thrushes.
Is that the cardinal?
It is. He sounds like he's super close. That's actually the female cardinal singing.
Oh, really? The female sings?
The females sing, yeah. And sometimes they sing right before sex. We watched it the other night. She was out there, she was doing that call, and then she did this kind of like really kind of whiny sound, and her tail went up in this very coquettish way, and then...
There's not many species of bird in which the female sings. I mean, in the UK, I think there's only one that I know of, and that's the robin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, female robins sing in the autumn, winter time. They actually hold territories.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which I never knew, but I didn't know cardinals sang.
Yeah, both males and females sing here. But, let's see. Oh, no birds. I'm trying to think of what other birds around here where the females sing. Well, we've got the phalaropes where the females are more brightly colored than the males.
That's right. And do you have them breeding in your state? Or they just pass through?
I'm actually not sure if they breed here. I've only seen them during migration. I don't think they do breed here. I think they go up to the Arctic Circle.
And you
We get spotted sandpipers breeding here, and they're fun.
which ones?
Spotted sandpipers?
Yeah, because the European version of that is the common sandpiper.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And yours do the butt thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the same genus, but obviously different species.
Do your females keep harems of males too?
What, spotted sandpiper?
Yeah.
Not that I know of.
So as I understand it here, the female will mate with the males and then the males do all the rearing, but sometimes she will have 3 or 4 males and it's her job to keep them from running into each other and arguing.
Well, that I didn't know. I didn't realize that there was that sexual situation going on with those sandpipers. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And going back to the phalaropes, which ones do you have passing through? Is it you call it the red phalarope, we call it the grey phalarope. Is that the same? Do you have the red?
No. We have Wilsons that mostly pass through here. If we get a red phalarope, we do get them, but it's super exciting if we get them. Oh,
amazing. One of the other things that you are well known for is your digiscoping and your phone scoping. Which I've been looking at some. I mean, in fact, when I first met you, I was really impressed because you made all these wonderful films on your phone. You were doing it like back in 2000 and whenever it was I met you. Because I looked at one the other day you did on it's on your YouTube channel, and it's about the Rio Grande Festival, and it's basically
yeah,
the sort of Hollywood type titles and stuff like that. Is that something that you're teaching people now in terms of digiscoping? You teach people how to digiscope?
Oh yeah, so through the Park Service, I do a workshop called Tech Nature, and I talk about all sorts of different apps. Some of them are bird related, some of them are mammal and insect related, about how to report them, how to identify them, the apps that will help you, how to photograph them. And then at bird festivals, I do one called Smartphone Birding, and it's all specific bird related apps. And I love how technology has made it so much easier. And this is one of the reasons why people aren't joining traditional clubs and groups, is because they can have the Merlin app, they can have the eBird app, they can have the iNaturalist app to help them identify and report birds and find birds. And I think it's really exciting. And yeah, I love talking to people about that. Also, I have this have you had one of these yet?
Well, I'm a Leica boy, unfortunately, so I will never have one of those, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm a Swarovski girl, so I understand how this is. But this is this is a monocular and a camera, and it's basically like an 8x30 Swarovski binocular and a camera, and it will, after you take the picture, it'll send it to Merlin and identify the bird for you.
Now, hang on, let's start again. That will take a picture of what you're looking at, and basically, with the image you're seeing, is that the picture you'll get, or would be some greatly small version of it?
No. It's an actual legit photo. Now, because it's handheld and it's not on a tripod, if you have a little handshake. But I have taken some good photos with this, and I have taken some craptastic photos with it, and it has identified the bird every time. I saw a bird fly up somewhere.
So how does it work? I mean, you look through it, you see the bird, you take a picture of it.
So it's a Wi-Fi hotspot.
I presume you have to have a clear picture. You can't just take a tail disappearing into a bush, or can you?
Oh no, you can. I took a picture of a female vermilion flycatcher, and it was just her back, and it was a cloudy day, and she was a little bit far away, and I really zoomed in since she was kind of grainy, and it still identified her.
Do you think that's a good thing for beginners? I mean, back in our day, we had to learn the hard way. Pick a book up, look at the book, go out, see a bird, make notes, or have your book with you and try and work out what it is. Do you think this might make people lazy?
Oh, no. I mean, number one, there's always going to be people who are into artisanal bird identification and really want to take the old route. But a lot of beginners out there, when they start, and it's like, I don't know what this is. All I know is it had some yellow on it and it was small. They don't know the difference between a warbler or a finch. And, they can try to go to some of these ID websites where they put in a bird and people make fun of them. Or I don't know, think about how many times people send you a bird photo and it's like, how many times can I identify a Cooper's hawk for you? So, I mean, this is kind of an outlet for that.
Yeah. I mean, I had a dream once. I dreamt that I invented this little laser, and you could make it either, you can kind of zone it down to birds or invertebrates or mammals, and you basically scan the whole vista and look at your reader, and it tells you all the DNA, all the species that are in that reed bed. And
now, see, would that ruin it for everybody? Like, if they didn't have to do the work of going out in chest waders and like scooping up the invertebrates and identifying them with a microscope?
Well, I thought to myself, that'd be great if you're surveying. You know, if you're a surveyor, you can just go, yeah, and you know exactly what's there. You can find the ivory bill woodpecker in 2 minutes. It'd be fantastic. But for people, ordinary people like myself and, you know, everyone else, I'm just wondering, I'll be a billionaire probably, but then I'll be feeling terrible thinking I've invented the atom bomb or something, because then it'll be making people lazy. So I'm not sold on that, Frosky.
So I'm thinking of all the times, like someone who doesn't identify as a birder and they've sent me a picture and it's something like a flicker or, you know, some bird that is common, but to someone who doesn't pay attention to birds isn't. Like somebody the other day said, hey, I found this bird head in downtown St. Paul, and it was really weird. It was kind of olive and gray, and it had a red dot on its head. And I said, was the head teeny tiny? Yeah. It's like, that's a ruby-crowned kinglet. They're super common during migration. And that blew their mind. So I think something like this, when someone sees something that they've never noticed before and they don't know where to begin, it's like, how would you know how to find a kinglet in a book? All you know is that it's small and olive, and you sometimes see red. If this gets them to that, it helps take them to the next step. It's like, well, what's a kinglet? How does it fit into stuff? Does it eat seed? Can I attract it? I think it leads to more questions and excitement than it does laziness.
Does anyone else agree with that? Anyone else want to comment on whether that new pair of binocular or that monocular can help birders? Anyone care to cast an opinion?
There, weigh in.
I think that whatever someone has with them that is going to help them get excited about birds and learning about birds and connect them to nature is perfect. So whatever tool that they have that they can use, you know, that's handy for them.
Good point.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I like her because she agrees with me, but I like her.
I was going to say pretty much the same thing. I think if it helps them to get to that ID quicker rather than getting frustrated because they can't find it in the book, it doesn't look like that, is it this, is it that, then that's great, as long as it doesn't make them lazy, because there could be a tendency to go, oh, I'll just point and click, and they're not actually paying attention to what's there in front of them and all the other detail. That's
my fear. My fear is that it takes, I mean, maybe I'm not trying to be a purist, but I'm just thinking to myself, you know, maybe that will stop people from working out exactly why it is a vermilion flycatcher or whatever, because, oh, I've just been told by the app that it's whatever.
Maybe you can only have so many IDs per day. You can only have so many in a day, and otherwise you've got to think about it.
I think it might be
selective.
I think it might be helpful with the young birders to begin with, but I don't think it's something they should own right away. It's something maybe they could borrow right away to learn from, but I think in the long run, people would get lazy.
No, I think people are inherently lazy. Like, if someone is lazy, then they're going to string the heck out of stuff. They're going to be like, hey, Alex, I saw that you saw this bird. Can you tell me what it is for my big year? And not go search. I mean, we all know those people who just kind of like glom on to our lists and are not interested in finding their own birds and things like that. Those people are already like that. I think there's a whole bunch of people whether that are going to be into birds, and if they can have a tool that just helps get them to the next step faster, that works. But we're always going to have some lazy people, and they're going to be lazy whether we have technology or not.
So I assume that Liz McQuaid would not be getting a pair of these, a monocular like this. Is that right, Liz?
Yeah, that's right. Although it might be something that we could get for the Young Birders, the Northeast Ohio chapter of the Young Birders Club. Maybe one or two so that the kids could share them and learn from them. Because I do think it's a good learning tool.
So here's the thing with that, and this is the thing, like right before we went into lockdown in Minnesota, that I suddenly realized why I had to cancel all my field trips. We can't share optics for a while. I can't share my scope with somebody, not without having it rubbed down. And it's interesting to me how we're going to have to change how we do bird programs during COVID, and how we're going to have to navigate a new normal.
Interesting point. I've got a note here from Charlie Farrell who says, "Not for me."
Fair, Charlie. Oh, I see a bird. Let me pin.
And whilst Bird Chick is checking out the birds, do you care to?
This is amazing.
Sorry?
This is for me. I am aiming this while looking at my laptop and not actually at my.
So effectively, Sharon, you're using the force.
I am. I love testing. Oh, okay. So for North American birders, this is boring.
No, it's not.
But I you UK people, these are quite lovely.
In fact, we want them back.
I'll ship some to you.
We want them back. They're declining. In Britain, the house sparrows declined by, I think, nearly or over 80% in the last 25, 30 years.
Wasn't there just that story about like the last two house sparrows on Iceland? Was it Iceland?
I don't know. What's the story?
I don't know. Anyway, it was just two lone birds and people were really into them. They're two males. They're never going to find a female because the population has declined. It's kind of like the wolves on Isle Royal.
And what's that story?
There used to be some wolves, and then someone took a dog out onto the island. It's an island out on Lake Superior, and it had a lot of moose and a lot of wolves. And the wolves used to come and go when we had a lot of ice, but for the last several years we haven't had ice for new wolves to come in because climate change. And someone went out to the island with a dog that had one of the dog diseases. I don't think it was distemper, but the wolf pack got it, and so the wolf pack got down to just a male and a female, and it was a father and a daughter, and so there had already been some inbreeding. So the National Park Service was looking at, so maybe we just capture wolves from other areas and introduce them on the island, and they've been in the middle of doing that. And the first winter they did that, we actually had a real winter. And the first female they trapped and put on the island, an ice bridge came, and she was like, nope, I'm out of here. But the other problem with the island is that the moose are so overpopulated, they're eating all the vegetation, and if there's not some balance with the wolf and the moose, then the moose are going to disappear too.
Oh.
We find ways to mess things up as humans.
We do, don't we? So going back to the phones, do you call it phone scoping, by the way? Because in the UK we call it phone scoping. What do you call that? Because you're using your phone, aren't you?
It is, and so and it's. I call it phone scoping, and it makes it easy because the case that I'm using is from Phone Scope. But and I feel like digiscoping is something you do more with a single lens reflex camera.
Yeah.
But no, the way that I got sold on using smartphones was on the trip where I met Bill Oddie in Israel. So have you done the Israel crane trip?
Yeah, Hula Valley.
Yeah. So we were out one morning, and for people who haven't gone, they put you in a big hide, which is basically bleachers that's attached to a tractor, and they drive you out in the morning through the cranes. And the cranes don't mind farm equipment, and it's fine. It's not like being in Kearney, Nebraska, where you have to be super quiet. And it was a beautiful foggy morning, and I'm trying to digiscope, and everything's all shaky, and it's just not working with my single lens reflex. And I had just gotten an iPhone, and I took a picture of just a landscape shot, and I was like, oh, this looks cool. I wonder what happens if I put it up to my spotting scope. And I took a picture, and it was an amazing photo. And I was like, why am I using a single lens reflex when the iPhone is so much easier? And so I still do both, but the iPhone is my go-to.
So how would you teach? Because I obviously we're all, but well, not all of us, but I speak for myself. I go birding, and I have a new iPhone. I've got iPhone 11, so I haven't got the holder for my scope yet. So I have to sort of maneuver the camera. Many people find it very difficult to do that.
It takes practice. So it takes practice. So here's the case. Please just pin the photo that I'm in right now. I'm going to take it out of the case here for a second. And also understand with Zoom, I can't take the vignetting out, whereas if I'm just using the Apple camera app, I can. So what you want to do is imagine one hand being your phone case. And let's see, we also want to hold it so we're not. And you want to hold this in the direction of what you want to take a picture of. And when you aim it down at your scope, do you see that little point of light in my scope's eyepiece? That's the image. So as you're lowering this down, try to concentrate on keeping that little point of light in the center of your phone screen. See how it's getting bigger? This is so weird doing it, looking at the screen and not at my phone. Okay, so right now, my pinky is resting on my scope eyepiece and my phone is resting on the pinky. And normally what I would do is I would zoom in a little bit, but I can't do that in Zoom. And then you tap the screen to autofocus with the scope camera, and then you just start taking pictures. So that's a technique that I teach, and then afterwards I let people try it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, sure. I mean, has anyone got any thoughts, any questions?
But it's 10 times easier if you have a case. If you have a case.
Yeah, because I know so many people that have problems actually trying to, they're struggling over and over again to get, because it's so frustrating trying to get that little speck of light to then open up to reveal the bird. Another thing that people do is they often zoom in to try and catch the birds, bigger. Would you advise that, or do you think it's better to take a picture?
Minimal zoom. And especially if it's a rarity, just take the picture, even if there's a lot of vignetting, and zoom in later, because if you zoom in on the phone, you're minimizing the pixels. You can zoom in a little bit. I usually have a tiny bit of vignetting, and I zoom in like, I think at 1.2. The challenge is too, with some of the other phones now that have 2 or 3 lenses, if you zoom in more than 2 times, then it'll switch to the other lens, and then it doesn't line up easily with your case if you have purchased a case. But the key is with digiscoping, whether it's single lens reflex digiscoping or whether you're using a smartphone, you have to practice. And what you have to do is you have to practice in a backyard and get really comfortable. Have some tea. Don't have coffee. You'll have too much caffeine. You'll be super shaky. But just practice at bird feeders. And once you get really adept at getting starling and house sparrow and woodpecker photos, then you're going to be ready to do it out in the field, because a lot of it is just being at one with your equipment.
Is there a difference between using an iPhone and an Android phone?
Not really, unless it's like a super old phone. But both phones have excellent cameras.
So it should be a lot easier. Okay, cool. I think, you know what, Sharon, I think we need to have you back, but giving us a lesson for an hour on how to do that.
Actually, keep talking. I'm going to try and get this cardinal above us. But yes, I will come back anytime because I love you. And you're fun to talk to.
Well, that's very nice. I feel the same way about you, Sharon. Anyone else for any questions? Because we're kind of, excuse me, this is not coronavirus, by the way. It's just, I've got a lot of dust in my apartment, actually, and I've been dusting over the weekend because I don't normally do that. The cleaner does, but, after 40 days, I thought I better do it.
That's hilarious. I just apologized to someone for sneezing, and I said, it's allergies. And she said, it's okay. You don't have to apologize.
And the other thing, I owe you an apology, by the way, Bird Chick.
Yeah.
Because I spelt your name wrong on my website. I missed out the E.
Oh, everybody does. That's why I go by Bird Chick.
I should have done that. I'm sorry.
So
Okay. Whilst you're doing all that, I need to ask you a few questions.
Yes, ask away.
This is what I normally do towards the end of the sessions here in conservation. But I've really enjoyed tonight. I hope you guys have enjoyed it too. Sharon, the burning question on my lips at the moment is, what's your favorite bird?
Whatever bird is in front of me. But I will give, I normally say whatever bird is in front of me, but I give 2 answers. I absolutely love the northern goshawk. It's the bird that's on my shirt because it thinks before it acts before it thinks, which I can relate to, and it's beautiful. But if I have to go by sound, then it is the brownback solitaire. It has the most haunting call I've ever heard in my entire life.
The brownback solitaire, is that a Central American bird, is it?
It is. So I went on a trip to Guatemala and I had the flu and I was just feeling miserable and I couldn't walk with the rest of the group. So I just sat down on the mountain and all of a sudden this bird started singing and it was the most amazing thing I ever heard in my life.
The solitaire family, they have a great range of songsters, haven't they?
Oh yeah, the Cuban solitaire is another really great one.
Because I was in Colombia in February and I was listening to the Andean solitaire, which is a beautiful sound.
Yeah, all the solitaires sound great.
Yeah. What's your favorite fish?
The walleye.
What's that?
I think in Europe you call it the pike perch.
It's either the pike or the perch, isn't it?
No, it's both. Because like Tim Appleton went nuts once when it was on a menu. He's like, you have to eat pike perch, you have to eat pike perch. And I did. And I was like, well, this tastes like walleye. And then I Googled it later. So walleye, it's a predatory fish. Its eyes are kind of like big and wide and on the side of its head. And it's delicious.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite invertebrate?
I think, well, it's that's another toss-up. I really love Cecropia moths. I love to raise them when I find them in oak trees and let them crawl on my face when they're gigantic. But I also love black swallowtails. Black swallowtails are one of my all-time favorite invertebrates.
And what are they?
It's a type of butterfly, and I got my garden going this weekend, and my main thing with my garden is I have all this parsley and dill because I want black swallowtail caterpillars. They're amazing. When they start off, they're on the tops of the leaves, and they look like bird poop. And then as they get bigger, they look less like bird poop, and then they look all green and black and stripy. And so if they're on parsley, they go down onto the stalks, so that way they hide a lot better. And then there's beautiful black and blue butterfly when they emerge.
Have you got a favorite reptile?
I do, and I'm trying to think what the name is. I saw it in Cuba. I think it's the blue-headed anole. It's a giant lizard with a sky blue head that's absolutely gorgeous.
And what about amphibian?
This is tough, but I think it has to be the Spring Peeper. It is our earliest frog in Minnesota, and it sounds like birds, and I love to listen to a pond of Spring Peepers calling all night.
Oh, lovely. And plant?
I suppose it would be bad if I said marijuana, but no. Cilantro.
And if you could be anywhere in the world, and you know there's no COVID-19, remember those days? Where would you be right now?
I would be at Estero Llano Grande in Weslaco, Texas, and I would be on their boardwalk, and I would be looking at black-bellied whistling ducks and buff-bellied hummingbirds, and if I was lucky, a green kingfisher would fly by, and I would have a flask in my pocket, and I would be sipping a little Jameson.
Fantastic. I've been there, actually. I've actually stood in that very broad walk, and I've seen Sora rail there as well, or Sora, as you call it.
There's so much. There's Parakis, but hands down, like if someone's like, here, you have all these free miles and you have 2 days free, what do you want to do? It is to go down to Estero Llano Grande and just chill out. I literally have done this with people who've been like, hey, I've got 2 days free and some miles, where do you want to go? And I'm like, Arlington, Texas.
Fantastic. Okay, anyone finally for any questions before we say good night, good afternoon and good morning? Anyone for a question? No? Okay. Sharon, how close are you to getting that cardinal?
We're looking at its butt right now.
Oh.
Got it.
It was more clear earlier, but now he's moved to a different spot. It's as if he's like, lady, I'm trying to sing. I'm trying to attract somebody. Leave me alone.
Okay, I can't even see it. But one thing I
saw
did
it earlier, it's a really brilliant, it's gorgeous colour.
One thing I did notice was Mark Collier. He's got a wonderful bird in his background. He's got my favourite bird. And I'd be staring at that if it wasn't for Sharon. and it's a ring ouzel.
Oh, my friend Adam, his dad has like the most recording of ring ouzels in the Macaulay Library.
And Mark's telling me that's why he chose it. Fantastic background, Mark. I love it. You win Background in the Evening award. Okay, well, I think we've come to a beautiful end to our lovely in conservation with, and I'm just here to remind you that tomorrow afternoon in England at 4:30 we have my Serbian brother who goes by the name of Milan Rusic, and we're going to be talking about, or he's going to be talking about, the owls in Serbia, the long-eared owls. Serbia is the best place on the planet to see long-eared owls.
I have seen many of the posts on your page. It looks fantastic.
It's amazing. I mean, I've been going there for 10 years now, and I just can't believe it every time I go there. Just can't believe it. You can take a group there, and within 3 or 4 days, they've seen 300 or 400 long-eared owls. And some of them have never seen an owl of any description in the wild before. And, you know, we're seeing long-eared owls as well as a couple of short-eared owls that roost with the long-eared owls, and apparently barn owls are taken to roost with these long-eared owls. So it's incredible how this is all developing. It's only been known about for the last 20 years or so, but it may have been going on for hundreds of years. But
that's incredible.
So that's happening tomorrow. But all I want to say now is, Bird Chick, you've been amazing. And I'm going to get you back because we're going to be doing some digiscoping and phone scoping even lessons.
I'm happy to do it.
We should do that. So thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe. Stay indoors for as long as you can. I'm celebrating hopefully on Saturday because I might be allowed to go for a walk. Oh, I just hope that happens. But anyway, in the meantime, keep looking up, yeah? Keep looking up. Speak to you later. Take it easy.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thanks,
Brilliant. Thank you.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.